Welcome to my sister's review. I'm here sitting on the couch with my sister Michaela,
And my sister Makanani.
and we're starting our podcast out today with just to get to know us. Going to be a short and sweet episode. We want to talk about who we are, introduce ourselves, kind of get into, since we're going to be talking about books for a while, we want to let you get to know us a little bit when it comes to books. What are our favorites? We want to talk about what to expect in upcoming episodes. And yeah, and if you have questions for us, please ask us in the comments
Mm-hmm.
if you want us to answer questions next time. And yeah, we're really excited about this. This is something we've talked about for a while,
Yeah.
and we want to kind of have that space dedicated to talk about stuff together. And this is something that we already do IRL, and we're like, you know what? Let's make a podcast about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to get us started, I'm going to ask some questions to get to know us when it's related to books wise today. So Michaela, what are some of your favorite all-time reads?
Um, I would have to say that in the different genres, I have different favorites. So for fantasy wise, I'm an SJM girl. I
Yeah.
like the Aquatar series, Stone of Glass, Crescent City, but also like classics like Harry Potter. Um, and then for some nice cozy reads, my favorites have been some Jenny Han books. The Summer I
Mm,
Turned Pretty, Saw the Boy That Loved Before. But I kind of go all over the place in terms of genres.
yeah.
What do you like to read? What are your favorite books?
Well, I feel like I said this to you before. I feel like I'm now re-entering into a different time in my life that I enjoy reading.
Mhm.
Calling it my cozy girl era, where I'm discovering things that I enjoy, like video games and reading and so forth. A lot of my reads growing up were definitely school related.
Yeah.
So, you know, from high school to college and grad school and whatnot. So I feel like re falling in love with reading for the sake of reading. So I want to say some of my favorite books as an adult. I think From Blood and Ash series got me
Mhm.
into the spicy
Yeah,
the
that's a good
spicy
one.
reads.
Hmm.
Haven't finished that series, but I've enjoyed the first several books. Fourth Wing has definitely also the Empyrean series has also very much gotten me. I'm like, oh yeah, I like this genre,
Yeah.
the romanticy, and I definitely want to agree. Sarah J. Maas, her world, her universe, coming from ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, um, you know, especially those two series, I think are my Roman Empire. I think
Mhm.
about them on the daily. So, but Fourth Wing is getting up there now. This Empyrean series is in my brain a lot.
Yeah, especially recently with its new book that just came out,
Mm-hmm.
Next Storm, which we will be talking about later. That it's all the rereads and content
Yes.
coming out
Yep.
surrounding it. It's very thought-provoking book. It makes
Yes.
you think through secret messages and
The
hints
bed
and things.
the breadcrumbs.
Yeah,
Yep.
collecting what you can.
Yeah. Yep. Which makes me also think of Taylor Swift. I'm like, she's definitely Taylor Swift inspired.
I think Rebecca likes Taylor
No,
Swift
100%.
because it's
That's
what's
all of
on
her
her,
reads
yeah,
or her listens.
her playlist
Yes.
release things.
Yep. I'm like, oh, yes, yes.
Mhm.
I see the inspiration because also Taylor Swift is a very much breadcrumby, like, oh, what are these clues?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah. But want to see, um, I guess going back to childhood a little bit,
Hmm.
what do you remember? What book do you remember creating your love of reading? Like, what was your like book that was like, oh, I do love reading?
I just some of my earliest memories is of our grandmother. And she would read when she would come
Mm-hmm.
and visit us. She would read the Junie B. Jones book. I don't know if you guys know those books. It's a very, very large series, but it's for first graders.
Yeah.
And she would just sit and read, and I would beg her to keep going, and going and visiting Borders and getting more Junie B. Jones books,
Mm-hmm.
and having that collection. And I think also I was copying you and our other sister.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like reading has been such a instrumental portion of my childhood,
Yeah.
watching you guys read, wanting to copy that as younger siblings do, but also like finding a good story that
Yeah.
you can sit and absorb and think about.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was the Junie B. Jones, and then school happens where you have to read, books that maybe isn't as interesting, but you're required to read,
Yeah.
and you forget that you actually like to read. So I remember in high school re-entering that with The Summer I Turned Pretty
Yeah.
books, the series, and absorbing that so quickly because if you guys have read those books, you understand that it's drama,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen, and you're sucked in, and you read them in one night,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're begging for the next book, and I have to read, I have to hurry, I have to get it, and it's 3 a.m. and you should be sleeping,
Yeah.
but now
But
you're
you're
staying up
reading.
all night. So that was the first one, as hey, I actually really enjoy reading,
Mm-hmm.
was To Summer I Turned Pretty series, which led into To All the Boys I Loved Before, Witch and Wizard. James Patterson was a huge influential author in my life with the Maximum Ride series. I went off I took everything I could possibly find, age appropriate
Of
wise.
course.
At that time, I remember a lot of people had really entered into Hunger Games when I was in middle school. And I
Yeah.
loved those books, but that became a required reading for
Oh,
eighth grade.
so then it kind of took it out.
So I mean, I was super into it, but we were dissecting it in a way that I, was bored of it. There's only so much that you can talk about a book in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
And like, I wanted to talk about, PETA and Katniss and their cute little love story, and that's not what we were talking. We were talking political stuff in school, so
Yeah.
doing stuff
The
on your
academic
own.
side of the academic dissection is can be a lot, and then you're in front of your classmates and you're in front
Yeah,
of your teacher, so it
yeah,
takes away like, oh, I'm gonna hold this opinion to
yeah.
myself. This may be not the
It
place.
can be a little scary to say
Yeah.
something that might not be well received in a classroom setting.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the book. It just I don't wasn't into the hype of it that everyone was like,
Yeah.
we have to read all of these. I read all of them obviously, but that was not what kickstarted it. It wasn't until high school that I was like, oh, I actually love books, and I will
Yeah.
stay up all night reading them. And that, translated into the rest of,
Mm-hmm.
when I could buy my own books was a huge portion of that as well, or rent from the library myself,
Yeah.
because you can only ask for, $15-20 books so many times. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I can get the Kindle version, I can get the Audible version, and I can get the physical copy because it's my money and I want to spend it on books.
Yep. Yep.
But what about you? What was kind of that start?
Well, similar to you, I feel like reading has always been a part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like we're generational readers too. Like, our grandmother was a librarian at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our mom enjoyed reading, but I do feel like our grandmother really embedded a lot of that. And even to this day, she still reads.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I feel like we got a lot of books as gifts
Yeah.
throughout our life, from when we were small to throughout our grades and whatnot. I feel like I have a lot of memories around the Alana series,
Mm.
and then I have a lot of memories around Series of Unfortunate Events. That one was very addicting. Although series for sure, but Series of Unfortunate Event, I remember like enjoying the relationship I had with my grandmother in that sense, in the sense she lived farther away, and so she would mail the books. She's like, "Oh, I think you like this series," and I feel like I was maybe fourth, fifth grade, maybe, or early middle school. But I want to say like it was later elementary, early middle, one of those time periods.
Mm.
And she would mail us the books, and I would read them so fast. I'd be like, "Hey, can you?" Because she'd read them first, and then I was like, "Can you send the next one?" And she's like, "I haven't finished it." I'm like, "Please hurry up and read." And it got to the point where I was reading them so fast that she was like, "I'm just gonna send it and read it later." And then I don't think she finished the series, but
Mm.
which is sad, but
Yeah.
but it was like, you get sucked into these beautiful, intricate, written stories, and it's just like I feel like um that cliche lives up to its name of where you when you explore these worlds, it's like you are literally jumping into these worlds.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to these authors because they are intertwining, are weaving together these beautiful stories. And, I'm still upset through those books because every book for the series of Fortunate, it ended on a cliffhanger. And I'm like,
Cliffhangers.
oh my goodness. Um, but I feel like those were the ones I was like, you know what, I love this. I love reading. And Harry Potter, like I was fortunate enough that I grew up with Harry Potter, like around the same age, like when his school grades. I think I was
You're
like,
around the same age
yeah, I was
as
around the
that.
same age. So it was like I was growing up with the trio, and it's like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And then like the book parties, like Borders had
Borders.
the midnight release for one of the Harry Potter books, and I'm just like, wow, reading is cool.
Yeah. Well, it's a big crowd that shows up too, so
Yeah.
you get to see a classmate you didn't know,
Hmm.
was actually reading the series.
Yeah.
In our small town, it's, nice to have people come together, which
Yes.
makes me so upset that we don't have borders
I
anymore.
know it's sadly we don't have like any big bookstores anymore. We have libraries, we can get stuff at Target, Walmart. It's just like,
Like used bookstores, which is great. I
yeah.
love the used bookstores, but when there's new books that premiere, chances are they don't have that book yet.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can sit and wait, for
Yeah.
that release, which I feel like is part of it. It's part of the excitement knowing a release date of a book.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Which unfortunately, um, for us where we live, we didn't get Onyx Storm until this past Thursday.
yeah,
Yesterday?
yesterday.
Was it just yesterday? Yeah, so just yesterday. In as we're recording this, but yeah, that was so sad because like the whole it felt like the whole world got it before us. It's like
Yeah.
no, but of course we had it on Kindle and
We
Audible
yeah, we
already.
did get the
So
online version because we couldn't wait. As soon as that dropped, I think we all started.
yeah.
But
And fun fact, I did wake her up for us to have an adventure to go get this book.
hmm
Luckily enough, there were copies when we got there. So
yeah,
yeah,
which was like an hour after opening.
yeah, of the store
So
opening because we thought it was gonna come a little bit later, but it's just like yeah, it. Thankfully, we were able to get it.
yeah,
So, and I know a lot of people out there are still waiting for your books and for the next drop for if you guys are getting the Target exclusive. So all the luck, sending all the
which I did
stuff your way.
hear actually that they are going to be sending more.
Okay, the second shipment or something.
There's going to be a second
That'd be
shipment, so
good.
there should be more coming if you wanted to get, one then you weren't able to get it. There um should be sending even more now, so
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see. I'm glad I got my copy.
I know. Man, I hoping and praying very hard. Um, I guess to wrap us up
hmm
for getting to know each other, or for you guys to get to know us.
We already know each other.
We know each other.
About 26 years now we've been in each other's lives.
Yeah.
Um, so
I guess what books would you say out of all time are your tops? Like if you had to if you in arm's reach and you had to
Mhm.
only save a couple books, which books would you save?
Oh no. my physical library is so large that that would tear me apart if I could only save a few. But I know that a book that is either number one or number two in my brain's ranking,
Mm-hmm.
A Thousand Splendid Suns.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That was the first book that evoked not just the giddy, cozy, like romance. It's not a romance book. It's not, a cute little story. It's
It's been very impactful.
heartbreaking,
Yeah,
impactful. I like laughed, cried through the book, but it was it was so the story I'd never read something
yeah,
like that before, and I think I've reread it 6 or 7 times now, and that's probably, if not my number one, high up there in terms of what I would want to save. Um, and that's, yeah, A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. Which, fun fact, we did have to read that in school. That
that's
was,
right.
I think, the only book that I liked. I actually read it when you guys were supposed to read it
Yeah,
in
which
high
also
school.
I think you were too young.
I
So
was very much very too young.
yeah,
But by the time I got to high school, I had already read it, so I could like
I'm
read deep
prepared.
dive it. And I led discussions. I got my little confidence, because I knew the story. I knew how it
Yeah,
was gonna end, and had your guys' opinions. I always loved reading books that you guys have already read, or we could read together, because it's the after, it's the talking about it.
mm-hmm.
That was the first time I had that, where I could talk to you guys really about a book.
Yeah,
That was the first one. And it's probably a sentimental thing,
yeah.
but that's really high up there. And then finally, after all these years, last year I actually read the physical Harry Potter books. I had only ever watched the movies because that wasn't my generation.
Right.
I was too young to follow along with the book series, so I just watched the movies and then went to the parties as a younger child. I'm not reading that book in, first and second grade,
Mm-hmm.
but I could watch the movies, and I thought that they did a good job because I never read the books. And then I finally read the books and was like, oh, they left out a lot.
Yeah.
This is a whole nother story in depth,
Yeah.
and then transitioning into what that led into, which was fan fiction, and finishing Manacled this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in terms of fan fiction, is probably my number one, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which I've still yet to read, but
yeah,
it's
you need to read it. I mean, we've dealing with all these new books coming out and stuff, but it's a really good um
fanfic.
fanfic that just follows the storyline so well, and it stays true to its characters, that you don't feel like you're reading a fanfic.
Yeah.
You feel like, JK released this herself, and it's like an alternative book with, having her own voice as an author. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the characters. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but to Harry Potter, Thousand Splendid Suns, and Witch and Wizard by James Patterson.
Mm,
I would reach for those
nice.
and run as
Yeah.
fast as I can. What about you?
Um, it's such a hard question, and
It's
I know I
hard.
just asked that, but it's like there's so many books that it's like, if I like had to jump and run and grab only a couple books, like, and leave the rest behind.
Yeah,
Granted, I would have my Kindle, so I'd have access to the e-reads, but
true.
um, I would say the Throne of Glass series.
Oh,
It's just like
that's one armful.
I know.
Wait for me.
I know. If it was just one book and not a series, I would say Ella Enchanted.
Mm,
Um, love the movie, Anne Hathaway did beautiful. But I see them as two separate stories for
because they
sure.
are, right?
Because the movie is so much different than the book. And I just love the book. And I know it's like the younger reads, but that was also one that was one of my all-time favorites. Say that one. Um, well, I would say I also like Avatar. I just like all these books.
Hmm. Well, that's as an adult,
Yeah.
that's been a good, you know, place to
Mm-hmm.
actually read something that you can, very
Yeah.
much relate to versus, you know, reading
Yeah.
maybe not as exciting books, biographies, and
Mm-hmm. I
whatnot.
mean, they have their place, but it's just
Not
yeah,
as exciting and
yeah,
yeah.
not the escapism to another world vibe. But yeah, I think those would be my picks. But as we're talking more about books, I feel like I'm unlocking memories of things that
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I did read that book. Oh, I forgot I love that story because cause I'm thinking of this other book that I loved. She had like short hair on the cover. She's like, I'm writing a story, and it turns out the book that you're reading is her story. I
What
can't
was
remember
that book?
what it was called now, but it's just like all these memories that come back. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I did read a lot.
We read Pride and Prejudice
Hmm.
and North
Northanger Abbey,
Northanger
that's a good one
Abbey.
too.
It's like more literature books. We did that
Hmm.
when we first started our book club,
Hmm.
and that was fun to deep dive
Yeah.
into the old English side of things.
Yeah.
Um, but that's one of our favorite movies
Hmm.
is Pride and Prejudice that I
Yes,
think
we
we've
love.
seen.
Oh my gosh, I want to say several hundred times now we've
Which
watched.
isn't even an
That's not
exaggeration.
an exaggeration. And the funny thing about that one was that our mom was like, "Oh, you guys would like this," and we're like, "I don't know if we're gonna like this." We played it once. We're like, "Oh my gosh, love this!" That as soon as we finished it, we watched it one more time because we're
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know what was
What
going on.
happened? I blacked out.
The 2007 version with Keira Knightley.
Karen Knightley,
That's the
yeah.
one. I mean, I don't know about you, but
The
I've
hand
watched.
flex.
Oh my gosh, that scene. Ugh, yes.
It's getting more popular in, I think, because we all grew up the same way and now we're all adults and now we can actually talk about it. But
Hmm.
I've seen so much more about this version of Pride and Prejudice than I think I've ever had in this like current time.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it
Hmm.
because Mr. Darcy.
Yeah. Well, Colin Firth's version is also really good too.
Yeah.
Him jumping into the water, the shirt scene. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah. Granted, I know there's a lot of you out there that enjoy those scenes, but
There's so many versions of
yeah,
literary classics
yes.
that it's hard to
And then there's
pinpoint one.
inspired ones too, like apparently Clueless, right, is also but based upon I think Sense and Sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Who's the
Anyone out
Man
there? She's
is
a man.
Shakespeare's
Oh my gosh, I'm
I'm
blanking.
blanking.
Hamlet?
No.
No.
Uh
Shoot. I'm totally blanking.
The
And
Twelfth Night, I think.
anyone correct us in the
Is that
comments
it?
what it is.
I know the original story, I don't remember the title. Shakespeare's one is where she pretends to be a man because she needs to be a judge and there's no women were judges and I had to memorize a monologue in high school.
Yeah, all the
Quality of
straws.
mercy is not strength. But it was from that, it was from Shakespeare. And I remember reading the play and I was like, this sounds like something else. Because She's the Man was also one of her favorite movies and it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this sounds oddly familiar to She's the Man. And I looked it up and I was like, oh,
Oh, yes it
because
is.
they stole the story and changed it into something more modern.
Well, we
Um,
shouldn't say that. We should it's been inspired.
oh, sorry. Sorry.
But yeah,
Um, but I was, it's interesting seeing and falling in love with classic stories in a new modern
yeah.
twist that way, which seems to be a trend also currently of people expiring books. What is
Oh, yes, their copyrights are expiring, right? That's what you're
no, I
talking
mean
about?
like like classic books that get changed into a modern version of that
Mm-hmm.
story. Like
Mm-hmm.
um there was another one I was just thinking of. That they take the themes, they take the plots and twist it around, which is what all authors essentially do. There's no
Mm.
real new ideas. They borrow things from other people and they create something new.
Put their spin on it.
Yeah, get inspiration from different things. Which I think is what we were also talking about in terms of Rebecca. We felt like there was some sprinkles of SJM and
Mm-hmm.
her themes that she likes to do. There was some sprinkles of, maybe some classic dragon related like Aragon
Mm-hmm.
and even, you know, themes that have been around for what the enemies to lovers trope is high in demand currently. People
Mm-hmm.
are obsessed with the morally gray characters that,
Yep.
you know.
Which we are your typical Disney kids too. So
Mhm.
growing up with that, I saw somewhere, I don't remember who did it, so I can't credit them, but saw somewhere online where they're like, oh, the reason why we like all these tropes is all these movies. I was like, oh yeah, Beauty and the Beast. That's a very classic enemies
Enemies
to
to
lovers.
lovers.
The why we like Faye so much, Thumbelina, Peter Pan, the first live action one. I
Yeah,
was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
that makes
Why
sense.
I'm drawn to all these stories. It's how it's
It's influential. That's
hmm
a critical time growing up, and we're watching these wonderful stories.
hmm
I didn't know that. That makes sense.
I don't know if it's something you think about, so
Yeah.
but I was like, yeah, the times that growing up in the 90s is we had a lot of great stuff in the 90s. So
Well, I grew up in the tail end of the 90s,
yeah,
and I feel like we were also behind a little bit because I still I lived through the 90s through you guys
yeah,
because we were like delayed in what we got in terms
of
of,
course, make it age appropriate, but
yeah.
I mean those ones are appropriate.
I like watching Thumbelina. I don't like if other people my age, I don't know if they know even Thumbelina, which is funny you brought that up because I just showed my daughter Thumbelina last night and she at first was terrified
Mm,
because the opening scenes are long and they're dark and it has all the words and she was like, "What is this
mm-hmm.
poor quality video you're showing me?" And then it got to the song Thumbelina and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
she was like going crazy and she loved it and it felt so like wholesome to me to be able to show her something from my childhood that she
Mhm,
actually started enjoying. And she was like, who is this fairy doesn't have any wings. And I was like, no, she's not a fairy, she's Thumbelina, she's the size of your thumb
mhm,
and she's the same size as the fairies. And then we had a conversation about how boys can be fairies too.
mhm.
So it was nice, and that was just last night. So it's like fresh in my mind that
Wow,
Thumbelina.
we're just on the same path.
Yeah, but every time I hear the Thumbelina song, I think of you and how you sing it.
Mhm.
Because growing up, you would just randomly, I think
Yeah.
it's the ADHD in us, that you would just sing
Mhm.
it for no reason.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I don't hear the song of how it originally plays. I hear your voice.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but it's like, the characterization and everything of that embedded, molded together with how I remember seeing it with you. And yeah, anyway, I went off on that tangent.
No, I love it. But yeah, well, thank you. And just want to say thank you to all you guys. This is our first episode, our first introduction
Yeah.
for you guys to get to know us a little bit more. We're so excited to journey with you guys, journey with
Mhm.
each other. I think, we talk to each other about a lot of things in our family
Obviously.
too. And we could talk forever about different topics.
Mhm.
When we enjoy something or love something, it's like stuck in our brain for a while. And talking about it is, we literally like yesterday we were just in the middle of the night. Do you remember this part in
Yeah, well, because we finally both finished
yeah, we
the
just finally
book,
finished
so.
Onyx Storm. So speaking of Onyx Storm, next episode, we are going to give our first impressions
Hmm.
because we just both finished reading it yesterday,
Yep.
and um, you know, still fresh. So there's still a lot of things we have like questions and thoughts and whatnot. Um, yeah, I think we will share some of that. Definitely give spoiler tags if we're talking about spoiler stuff, but
which I think we probably
yeah,
will be, especially if you haven't already read the other two books prior, which
yeah,
is Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. uh you might want to skip the next episode just
yeah,
because I feel like the entire episode will probably be spoilers.
yeah,
But we'll try to do, you know, books that you guys also recommend, and we can read those, and we can share things that we love. And if
yeah,
you guys love books and want to talk about it too, like, let's talk about it. We're open to expanding
yeah.
what we're reading, what we're watching.
What we're talking
Even
about too. So
I know there's different seasons for things, and lots of things coming out this year. And um with everything else going on in the world, it's nice to just be able to sit and talk about
things we
things
enjoy.
that are imaginary. Things that we enjoy, things that we love, things that make us feel good and fill our cups. And we wanted to bring that to you guys to
Yeah,
see, you know, collectively if we can fill each other's cups up. And there's a lot of different people that talk about things, talk about books, talk about, everything. Um, but we're different. They're not us.
yeah. But
um,
yeah, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.